Welcome, friends. I'm so excited for you to meet the Cheryl Byrne. She is amazing. She is a breakup and relationship expert and coach. She is a certified soul teacher, and she is one of the best women I know. I'm so excited for you to get to meet her and listen to our conversation. We're going to be talking about pretty much everything, but as Cheryl is a breakup coach and has her own story to tell, I do want to ask a few questions about love and relationship and things like that. So let's get into it. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Abby. Thanks so much. That was such a lovely introduction. It's so good to be here and get to have this conversation with you.
I'm so glad that you're here. I know that we know how we met, but why don't you give us a little bit about your story, a little bit about your journey, and we'll talk a little bit about how we met. And
Absolutely. Sounds good. Um, so currently I am an intuitive guide and also a coach. So I work with people to help them uncover blocks that they may have and also provide them with guidance to help them move forward. So as you mentioned, I work in breakups, relationships. So typically specialize in areas of the heart. And for me, the areas in the heart don't just always have to be romantic. It can be relationships with anyone, and most importantly, the relationship with yourself, because ultimately, the quality of relationship you have with yourself determines the quality of relationships you have with other people. So, how I got into this work was really after going through a breakup myself. I felt like my whole world was torn apart. Prior to going through the breakup, I thought that wellness was all about, getting my hair done, getting my nails done, all those lovely things, which I still love to do, but ultimately it wasn't even scratching the surface. So I started, like, I really had to try and uncover how I had created the life for myself because I kept seeing that expression around the place. Our external world is a direct reflection of our internal world. So for me, that was really jarring because it was meant that I had to accept accountability for how my life had turned out.
mm,
So I went to a lot of therapy. I dove deep into personal development and I started a meditation practice. And the meditation practice was purely just for mental health reasons. But ultimately, like a lot of people, personal development and mental health is such a gateway into the spiritual community. So when I was reading all the books, I started coming across spiritual leaders like Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, all of who are amazing people. And I loved their work. However, something was missing for me that I wasn't quite able to grasp. And it was when I came across the likes of Gabby Bernstein, Manifestation Babe, that they were all speaking about trying to accept the life that you have now, but ultimately striving for something better. I felt that gave me permission because I think a lot of people think that spirituality is all about sitting in the present moment. And absolutely, that is a big part of it. But those women gave me permission to actually know that it's okay to strive for more. It's okay that I'm not happy in my life at that time, but I can ultimately make it better if I do the work on myself. So through their guidance and their books and their teachings, I ended up, playing with the universe, looking out for angel numbers, asking for signs for the universe, and ultimately led me to following my intuition, and which has led me to do coaching certifications and ultimately to do soul teacher. Soul teacher for me was the biggest leap. I literally found it about a week before, and everything within me was going, do it. Don't think about it, just do it. And it was the best decision I made. I got to meet you, I got to meet so many other amazing people. And I finally got to uncover gifts that I had within myself and actually just find such an amount of self acceptance in that whole experience. I think when we're all on this journey of discovering ourselves, we think we've found an area that we accept in ourselves, and then we go deeper and we uncover more, and we have to go through it all again. And so the whole ego death and keep growing, keep learning. So yeah, that's really how I got here.
God, you said something that just like really like really resonated with it. Like I also love teachers like Eckhart Tolle and had found him prior to all of this stuff for me and prior to me starting my own business Um, and I agree with you. I always felt, but like there's an entire universe. Why is this like all that I'm supposed, like this can't be it. Like I can absolutely want more for myself. And I don't think necessarily that like Eckhart Tolle said, just as an example, because we both know him well. Not personally, everybody.
I'm like, gee, can you hook me up?
The breath of life conversation, that would be awesome.
I don't mean hook
out,
me up like that though, by the way. Just use
no,
somebody I would love to sit down and have a conversation with.
But I'm sure that he probably doesn't mean for his work to be interpreted that way, but it really does. In a lot of ways, that's kind of how you enter. I feel like that's how you enter into work like that is having to have that sense of, but like it's okay right now, and this feeling of like I'm not broken. Like I'm not broken. I am perfect as I am right now. But there also tends to be this then thought that like you end up staying there. So I agree with you, because it wasn't until I started like branching out and looking for other people that I realized like it's not selfish. It's not, I mean, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the most selfish thing to be able to say like, but I want more. I want more, and I'm going to ask for more. I'm literally going to put out into the universe, I want the money, the career, the relationship, the car, the house, the whatever, and not feel like just because I'm asking for those things means that I'm not okay with what is right now. Like I'm absolutely okay with what is right now. And I'm fully aware that I have stuff of my own that I need to work on and all that stuff. And there's the shadow work all to be done. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm still going to be asking for that, $100,000 salary, right?
Yeah.
you know,
There's nothing I agree with you. I don't think it's selfish. And you're 1,000% right. He doesn't intend his work to be portrayed that way. I think it was very much the time that I was in my life where I didn't feel like I was okay. I didn't feel happy with my life. And it was such a struggle for me to actually read. I wanted to read the books. There was something within me that was drawn to the books, but at the same time, I couldn't comprehend it in my head. I was like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay in this present moment. So when I actually found those other people that talked about manifestation, and he does talk about manifestation as well, just not in some of those books that I had gone to first off. And he does speak about like the universe, you've been happy in the present moment and things been drawn to you. But I think it's that feeling of guilt, like you explained it there as well, like saying, is it selfish to want those things? I really don't think it is, because we have those desires in our heart for a reason. The universe wouldn't put our desires in our heart unless they're meant to be there. And the universe is always going to guide us to try and get us there. But however, there is limitations we place on ourselves with the limiting beliefs that we have that may block us from getting there.
It sounds like from your what we've talked about right in the past in relation to your work, as well as what I've heard from others who do more coaching stuff, that whole limiting beliefs topic, I feel like that's like a big thing. I mean, I know that you and I are both huge fans of Angelica Ray, who has a whole like program that she does. I have a friend of mine who had done a whole thing similar that I feel like every program that's similar to this, they call it limitless. There's exercise people who have, the limitless, branding and whatever. It's such a big topic. Do you feel like it's maybe become like a fad at this point, and like some of the meaning has kind of been lost a little bit? Or do you feel like, especially in the context of your work, it still has a lot of meaning, it's just that needed in society and like in our own personal lives?
I think for me, and we would have covered a lot of that in my coaching certification. So I do believe that it's so important. It definitely, I know where you're coming from, that it's kind of like is it genuine to go out and tell everyone that they're capable of having everything that they desire? Ultimately, I do believe that the universe is trying to draw us to the things that we desire most. But for me, the most important thing is to notice your thoughts, to notice the limiting beliefs, because they are just thoughts and they are just beliefs we have. Um, so for me, I'd always like when I was starting to observe my thoughts, I'd do the 3 step rule to observe your thought, challenge it, ask yourself, is it true? Because the majority of times it isn't true. If it is true, don't beat yourself up. You can still change that. Like you have the power to change it. And that's the third thing, is to change it. If you're not happy with that belief, how can you change that? And for me, that really like it's such a simple thing, but when you're in that cycle of not observing your thoughts, it's so hard. And I actually remembered when I started doing these exercises, how shocked I was, how mean I was to myself. Like it was quite upsetting. Like you wouldn't say those things to like your friend, you wouldn't say them to a family member, but yet the way we speak to ourselves can be so damaging.
Yes, I definitely resonate with that a lot. I feel that very, very deeply. Um so not I decided that I was going to do a book club. um like like have a book club of my own. I'm trying to manifest being the next Oprah.
Amazing. I can see it. I can see it now.
That's one of those things I'm like, it might or may not happen. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. But there's a group of books that I would really like to have as a part of that book club. And in one of them is the main character needs to get this mirror. This is a prelude, fans and watchers, because it will be coming. There's a character who has to get this magical mirror, but in order to claim it, she has to look into it. And the myth, the legend is that like anybody who looks into it goes mad. And the whole like point of it is that when you look into this mirror, you see all of the things about yourself, good and bad. And so I actually, in my one-to-one coaching, I actually have this as, I call it the Arbros challenge. And it's where you spend 3 days writing down everything that you think about yourself. Absolutely everything. The good, the bad, everything. And I did this challenge, oh God, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2. And I was appalled. Like after looking at the list, I was so appalled at myself, going like, wow, like not only was it very long, not only was it a very long list, and not only was it mostly like negative stuff, that was like, what in the world? Like if I didn't already know that I was my biggest critic, did that challenge actually show me I am absolutely my biggest critic? I am absolutely my like most horrible to myself, that I don't talk to myself the way that I would talk to my friends. So I absolutely agree with that. We are almost programmed in a way to be mean to ourselves.
Be mean, totally.
And it's weird because it's mirrored to us every day. Like every day we go out into the world, there's always the ideal out there, right? Like a poster of a female, and this is the ideal body type, this is the ideal beauty, this is the ideal station in life that you have to reach. And it doesn't matter if you're a bystander or if you're actually the person who's in the photo. Like how many models have said like, I saw a picture of myself on the cover of Vogue and I was like, that's not me. Like that's not me at all. They touched up everything, they made me thinner, they like did the hazy thing, they put some filter on, and that's like not my skin because I'm covered in makeup. And even they look at themselves and go, oh, like I am really imperfect. Like, how do I get like her? How do I get looking at themselves and they find their own selves lacking? So it's crazy that we live in this society that wants in some way for us to be constantly unhappy.
Yes.
Amazing.
I love the sound of that challenge. That must have been very confronting to actually write everything out and be fully honest with yourself. That's
I
really,
highly
really
recommend you do it.
yeah,
I
I think I might. It sounds something similar to I did a program manifestation based program earlier this year, and we had to in the shadow work, we had to write out like, you know, people we disliked and reasons why we disliked them. But
Mhm.
ultimately, it was that whole thing: what we love in others, we love in ourselves; what we judge in others, we judge in ourselves. And it was like, what about this person drives you that crazy? Because that's within you. We're all connected to each other. That is someplace within you. And it mightn't be the exact same thing. Like it can be hard to perceive because it might be a mean person. But ultimately,
Mhm.
that person might be mean because they're hurting so bad or because they're not been seen, they're not been heard. And ultimately, if you don't feel seen and heard, it's the same. It's coming from the same emotion. You might react differently to it, but it's a really good way of actually showing compassion to other people.
I agree with that. And I think that, you in those types of situations too, I always encourage people to go to the most extreme example. Like, nobody wants to be, compared to, like the KKK here in America, a very racist group, or, the Nazis in Germany in the 40s. But and I highly encourage people
Mm.
to compare yourself and like look at what you're saying about these people, because like my favorite thing to say is like nobody is a villain in their own story. So if you were to
Mm.
ask one of those people who believes these something very, very counter to what you believe, and you were to ask them like, are you a racist? Do you hate humanity? They would say no. I just want what's best for me and my people, and they're not their villain. They're their own.
Mm.
And so I'm not saying that we need to excuse behavior. I'm not saying
Mm.
that we need to excuse hateful language and speech. I think yes, absolutely there is darkness in this world, and hate in this world, and evil in this world. I know some people don't like to say that there's like evil in this world, but I mean, I think that there is. I mean, obviously everything within context, right? And perception. But at the same time, though, like, can we honestly say that all of us have never had a racist thought? I mean, as a person of color, I absolutely have. I
Mm.
absolutely have. If I can admit that,
Yeah.
then everybody should be able to admit that,
Yeah.
right? Like you might not like that. You might not like the fact that you felt the need to clutch your purse or stick your hand where your
Mm.
wallet is while you're walking by a group of people who doesn't look like you.
Mm.
But you did it for a reason.
Yeah.
There's got to be an implicit bias, or there was something about
Yeah.
that person scared you or made you worry, or you were told you needed to do that because that was the right thing to do, but they never really gave that person who told you that never really gave you a true context of why they were doing it. I mean, these are all things that lead us to acting in ways that we don't truly believe in our heart is how we want to live our lives
Yeah.
and move through the world. So it might be really hard to go to that extreme, but absolutely do I feel like we need to, you know,
Yeah. That's really powerful because it's all those things that you're talking about and all the admissions of that. And it's like, well, where did that come from? Where did that reaction to clutch the purse come from? Because it's coming from fear.
right? Fear. I love that. And I know you say this a lot, especially to your clients, of like every action, every thing that you do made out of either love or fear,
Mm.
right? So true. And I don't know where I heard that first, but I absolutely agree with it.
I'm going back to reading Gabby Bernstein's "The Universe Has Your Back." I've read it about 4 or 5 times, but this weekend I was like, I need to read the book again, and it's all about that. It's like when you're having fear-based thoughts about bigger things in the world, or maybe it is that you're just not getting your desires, what you want from life right now. That's coming from fear, the fear of the reality that you might not have it. But when you try and look at it from a perception of love, you can actually call more into your life because you're actually just coming from a better place. That fear, that impatience, and it's a journey. Like you and I have talked about this before. It's something I was called to read that book again for a reason, and that reason is because I'm getting impatient in some of my desires, and it's like I need to like hang back. That whole word of surrender comes up the whole time, and it's like, okay, but how do you actually do that when you desire something so much? So this book is really teaching me to go back to that perception of love. And sometimes it's not actually that we have to do anything, but sometimes it's actually offering it up in a little prayer or something to say, teach me how to see this with love, rather than actually, I'm a big doer and I need to get more into my feminine energy and actually try and surrender more and actually allow things to happen rather than doing, doing, doing.
Right. That I love that. I love that word, surrender. I think people um, have such a negative connotation, like our society, I should say, not people, but our society really does not like surrender. I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a fear of like religions like Islam, because that
Mm,
is one of their tenets is to surrender to their God and um, and to kneel. That's they have the practice of praying 5 times a day, um, and I think that especially for the Western world, that idea is one tied so strongly to weakness.
mm,
And um and it's not like, I mean, like you were just saying, when you can delve into your, whether you call it your divine feminine, your femininity, your moon side, your
yeah.
whatever it might be, right? um and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to let what is meant for me come to me. I think people really do get very scared about that because
Mm,
they don't know what's good for them, right? They don't know what the universe is going to say, this is what's good for you. They might not like it. Like I feel like women of all ages who are interested in getting a partner do this all the time, where they are afraid that the person that the universe is going to choose for them is going to say, here on a silver platter is your life mate. The person that you will be with for the rest of your life is going to be fat and slovenly and not have a job and like live with his mother and eat Cheetos all the time and it's like how do you get somebody to realize, particularly women, because I feel like we're running to catch up, right? In
mm.
today's day, we're running to catch up on pay, to catch up on jobs, to catch up on respect, to catch up on power, right? We're running, running, running. And at the same time, we're like trying to hold on to all of the things, right? The wanting to be a mom, the wanting to have children, the wanting to clean the house and cook and do the laundry and be like praised for doing all of those things because that makes you a good woman. Forget being
And look
a
good.
right and still look at exactly that triggers so much, like trying to do both, right? Trying to run and grab, trying to hold on to what's behind you or what society says this is what you're supposed to do, triggers so much fear and
Mm.
surrender is almost impossible. So when it comes to something like, asking for the love of your life, we end up having this like, oh my God, what if he's not what I want?
Yeah. So interesting that you say that about the word surrender being a bad thing. And it's funny because I think I said it to somebody last week. I was like, I actually don't like that word surrender. And it was because I seen it
Mhm.
recently and it's like a quote, and it was basically saying like surrender is to give up, like don't give up. And I was just like, wow,
Mm.
that's not my perception of the word surrender. I was like, am I confused with it? Um, for me, it's more like stepping back, allowing divine intervention to come along and step into play. Because when we're trying to control things too much. So when I came out of the relationship that set me on this course, I clung on to it for so long because I was so afraid. And there it is, the fear coming up again. I
Mhm.
was so convinced that this was my person, that we were going to get married, we were going to get kids, we had the house together, we had planned all that sort of stuff, but um, I couldn't see anything else. Like there was no other option for my life. That was the track that I was on, and for it to be taken away from me, it was like, well, what the fuck's going to happen? Is there going to be nobody else for me? So it was spent a long time to actually uncover that and realize actually the reason you might be hanging on to that relationship or a particular friendship or something like that might be fear based, and it's
Mhm.
about trusting that there is something better out. It all comes back to our worthiness. Do you not believe that you are worthy of more? Do you not believe that you're worthy of that good person? Like, what is setting you back, actually making you think that you're going to be with that fat slob? You still have choice in it. You get to co create with the universe. And it's not, it's very important to differentiate as well that, like, we need to take inspired action too. Like, the law of attraction, I think so much getting into it. And The Secret is a really good book. I read it at the beginning of when I started this. It was probably one of the first books I read. And it was good, but it's very much like that law in isolation and not taking into account the other universal laws like the law of inspired action. You can't expect your the love of your life to come knocking on your door. Maybe he will, but also, what else do you need to do? Do you need to be going out? Are you going to the right places? Are you online? Are you doing the things you need to do to meet somebody? Yes, there's a balance. There's the balance of, like, gently pushing, but also that, not gently pushing, that's probably the wrong way of saying it when we're talking about surrender, but as in, I think you get what I mean, the balance of like going out and doing your thing, but allowing the universe to come in as well.
That is such a good point because I see that a lot too. I see that a lot with friends and family, and that they will say, you know what, well, and especially now knowing that I'm an intuitive and I can make. I'm not hugely predictive in my work. I
Mm,
don't really like that. I really believe very strongly in the power of free will and that we all have free will. I mean, and I'm willing to be like, walk away from your soul contract, walk away from what it is that you are meant to be doing in this life, as your soul had like subscripted it before you came into this life. I don't care. You've got free will, and all I can do is tell you what is in your highest and greatest good based off of what your soul is telling me. um but I I feel like that is what everybody that comes to me asking that question, right, is doing. They only have half of the equation. They're like, just tell me that I'm gonna meet the person that I'm supposed to meet. And I'm like, sure, I can tell you that. Like, you're gonna meet them. But what does that do for you? You're just looking for this like magical whatever showing up to you on a silver platter. But people forget that, like, if that were to actually happen in 2021, they would go, you're a stalker, you're gross. Like, no, this is weird. Do you know how many women go into the bars, right? And they're just sitting there, right? They're just sitting at the bar, they're having a drink, maybe they got a girlfriend with them or not. And a man walks up, is brave enough to walk up to them and go, hi, you're really beautiful. Or maybe they give a really shitty like pickup line. Either way, they showed bravery that this particular person had none of, right?
yeah.
And the woman goes, no, not here for that, right? And it's like, you just shut down the universe. You have no idea who this person is. You didn't
Yeah.
give them a chance. You looked at them, you said, not the right shoes, or you looked at the fact that they're drinking out of a straw, which even I am a little bit like, you know what? I watched way too many romantic comedies. Thank you, crazy, stupid love, for making me
Oh,
not really appreciate men who drink out of straws. Um, but they've just essentially shut a door that
yeah.
may have been the thing, right? And this happens all the time. And so, women need to, well, and some men too. I shouldn't just lay this all on women, but um, they need to remember the other half of that equation that you were talking about of, yes, you can absolutely ask the universe for anything you want, any sort of thing, but you also have to put in your work too. You do, and you can't shut down things immediately when you're like, first impression, nah, I'm not about that. If you were really serious and you were really honest with yourself about, yes, you want somebody in your life, you also really have to be on board with the idea that they may not be in the package that you necessarily want, but they are going to be the thing that you absolutely need at your core. At your core.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought up the predictions thing, because that's not something that I like to do in my work either, is get too predictive with people. And ultimately, that's why a lot of people are coming to us for readings, is when they do want to know when they're going to meet their partner. For me, it's really about working with somebody to actually help them uncover the blocks, to collapse the timeline and make it quicker. So if we were to actually look at it and say, oh, it could be 4 years before you meet your partner, and then that person goes off and goes, 4 years. Okay, I'm going to be that woman. I'm going to sit at the bar. I'm not going to talk to anyone because I'm not meeting my man for 4 years. But actually doing the work and actually listening to the guidance that the universe is providing, and actually like getting your shit together, means that you can collapse time and meet the person quicker.
Yes. I think there's also this idea too that like, you are perfect as you are, and that sort of like makes people like forget that like, just because you're perfect as you are doesn't mean you can't be better. I think this idea of perfect means like it's 100% and there is no more than that, and that's so super limiting. I know that I myself use limiting language at times, and I'm trying to get better about it, but like, just because something is good right now doesn't mean it can't be better. And so this idea that like there's nothing wrong with you, right, means that you can just like go out in the world and somebody else needs to like get better in themselves, as if you have no further work to do. I think one of the best things about being intuitive is this very real understanding, like we are not exempt from the work that has to be done. Like you have to absolutely do the shadow work. You have to realize your darkness. You have to realize your biases and your prejudices and work to overcome those. You have to realize that maybe you're like judgmental and like and like that's not gonna fly for a lot of people. Like a lot of people are gonna look at that and go, not for me. And if I want to open up more doors, maybe I need to seriously consider, like, are those things that I really don't like about myself and are really limiting to me, or are they things that I'm okay with, and that the group of people then that can handle those things about me, they're absolutely what I need in my life.
I love
that. I think that there are a lot of people there that don't.
I think it's the self-awareness of knowing that if you have those traits, and we all do, we can all be judgmental. I think if anyone thinks that they're not judgmental, try doing it for a day and like notice. Like I think they had us try to do that in the coaching certification, because the big thing about coaching is like create a non-judgmental space for your client. And like you go out the door, and like that you said about a guy's shoes, you're kind of like going, yeah, no, stay to his shoes, or like straight away, it's within us. We do judge people, and that's just natural human being thing. But if to actually have that self-awareness, to actually go, okay, I know that I have a tendency to do this, but am I okay with that? Am I happy with myself? Or am I actually saying that I'm happy with myself, but actually feeling guilty and actually beating myself up, but not actually realizing it?
Yeah. So maybe you don't want to share this with us or not. I would love to know if you're willing to share. After this breakup, and I don't know if, I hope that, people who are listening really do like feel off of you the gravity of how much this rocked you. Like, I mean, I know that, as friends, we've talked about this pretty much at length, but for all of our watchers out there, like Cheryl was in a relationship that was what word do I want to use to pass on the gravity of it? I mean, you really truly felt like this was your soulmate. You know, that this was somebody that you had, this was the future, right? Like this was everything. There was no end to this. You felt very strongly that you could grow together and, you know, be parallel with each other. And ultimately that's not what happened. And that is, I know that there are probably a lot of people out there listening who can probably really relate to this and think, oh, like, oh my God, like, yeah, like that's exactly where I was. And yet you were able to come back from that. Was that really, I mean, I know you spoke about therapy and things like that, but was there a moment that you can remember where you were like, something in your heart and in your mind clicked, where you were like, and now I can breathe. Now I can take a breath.
No, I feel like it took me so long to get back, but you brought up soulmates and we must go back to soulmates after. Let's circle right back to that. Because I love that whole concept. For me, it was a lot of work in therapy. I was going to therapy every week. There also was a fact that we didn't have a clear break from each other, kept on coming into each other's lives, and that obviously, and I know a lot of people, that happens to a lot of people, because when you have that connection with somebody, it is very hard to break free from that and actually admit that it's fully over. So I think it took me, when you mentioned one moment there in the heart, one moment, I did get one moment from hope. So I'd been, like I mentioned earlier, I'd been meditating for a long time. And I was doing meditations. I love Insight Timer. And there's a woman, Sarah Blondin, and she does lovely meditations, guided meditations. And there was one that she was like, place your hand on your heart. And I think I had done it a number of times, but at one point I did this meditation one day and I felt my heart again. I felt it like flutter. I felt it do something. And it only lasted like 2 seconds. Like, I'd say so quickly, but I was like, what the hell was that? What just happened? I was like, oh my God, I can feel something. Because at that time, I feel like my only emotions were like absolutely pain, or else completely numb and just go into robot mode. And because I didn't tell anyone in work what I was going through. So I just went into robot mode. So there was only those. So for me to actually have feeling in my heart again, I was like, what? So then for that reason, I kept showing up, kept meditating further and further and further. So I suppose that for me was the moment of hope.
Yeah.
That there was life inside of me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's powerful. And that's very real. I think that being able to, and for you to acknowledge that what you were feeling was hope, not happiness, not a completion, right? A moment of hope that was able to get you through to the next moment. And I feel like as a nurse, I feel this a lot. Like a lot of people I work in the emergency room, for anybody who doesn't know. And one of the things that emergency room nurses will tell you is that we are trained so extensively on how to save lives. Like, the emergency room is where you would anticipate that emergencies show up. I shouldn't put that in quotes, but like something that is life-threatening to you is happening to you, and that is why you come to the emergency room. That is where the expertise to save your life is, and they will do everything in their power. They will fight for you until there is literally no hope left. And we have to, and even then, most of the time we continue because that's just who we are as people. But that's not what ends up happening. What ends up happening, 9 times out of 10, a person will come in with not an emergency, something that easily could go to an urgent care or a minute clinic, something that's like just a walk-in, or something that absolutely is like a chronic issue. It should be dealt with at their primary care physician. And like, because they don't have a primary care physician or for whatever reason, they're showing up in the emergency room. And what people don't understand is that when you're so highly trained, and you anticipate, like you're constantly at a level where you're anticipating that like something is wrong. And then you get 20 people who walk in with like a rash that like you could have gone and like put some like cortisone, hydrocortisone on. Like, yeah, I'm caring for you. And like, yes, you'll get like a piece of my heart and a piece of my sympathy. But those people tend to be the most demanding. They tend to be the most rude. They tend to be mean, aggressive. And so there is this numbing effect that happens and a jadedness that happens where you start like anticipating that like people aren't going to really have any problems. And then one person gets brought in and they truly are having an emergency. And that one person reignites in you the hope in humanity that you hope every day you're going to feel. And that one person sustains you for the next 6 to 8 months where you don't have anything but like hate and like totally healthy babies, but like new moms who are like, I just don't know why they won't stop crying. Well, like a sweetheart, this is like what you signed up for when you decided to like baby. And so I completely understand that it's like there are these moments in our lives where hope is all we have. And and it's not false hope, it's not unrealistic, and it's only a spark. It's a moment, but it gets you to the next one. And I think if more people could recognize that fleeting moment, God, right? Like, what would this world be like?
It's funny, well, not funny, but the analogy you used and just what was going through my mind is that like other people in those where they're not feeling that hope, there is no emergency room. They don't go there. Unfortunately, they just slip deeper and deeper. And it is about trying to find that hope. And these practices do get you there, whether you're trying to do it for personal development or for a spiritual connection. Whatever reason you get into doing it, it will provide you with the hope. You just have to keep going, keep being consistent, keep showing up for yourself. It's not easy. It's not easy to do it, but people do it for a reason. People say, like when I heard of meditation to begin with, I was like, oh, that's not for me. Hated it when I started it. Absolutely hated it. There was a reason why I hated it. And even when I go into the gravity of what went on, and how I can talk about, how I felt like my life was torn apart when that happened. But when you go back and you uncover everything else that came before it, there was so much more. There was so many layers that I had, so much inner child work to do, so much shadow work to do. So as much as we can go through life and kind of think in that time, this one thing, this one occurrence, this breakup, a lot of times there's a lot of domino effects that's leading you to that point. Yes. And it just takes time to go back and actually figure out how you created the life so that you can learn the lessons and move forward. Now, I know there is people in very, very difficult situations, so I'm not trying to take away from people, with that, but I am just saying, if you are coming out of a relationship, there is lessons to be learned from it. And once you learn those lessons, if you don't learn the lessons, you're going to be in a relationship with a very similar person and it's going to pay out in the same way. So it pays off so much to actually do the work and learn the lessons now.
Absolutely. I so agree with that. Let's go back to that concept of soulmates. What is your thoughts? What are your opinions?
I would have completely always been like, oh yeah, soulmate. But now over the last few months, I've such a clearer understanding of it. So we've all lived many lives, and we've gone deep into this in the Soul Teacher course, lived many lives. So chances are a lot of people that come into our lives that we connect with, we've done another life with them. And so it's the same when you meet friends, and I'm sure you and I, when we connect straight away, like we've done another life together. So it's the same when you meet a partner and you connect with them straight away, that bond, you've had that bond with that person before. Your soul knows, your heart knows, like you just know it's there. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes with people in relationships, they can't come away from them because they're so attached to that person, thinking, but I knew the moment I met him, I was supposed to be with him. But
Mhm.
that's not him, her, whichever. But that's not actually what it's from. It's actually from another life that you did that. It doesn't mean that you're meant to do this life with that person. There may be some karmic lessons that you need to learn and heal. But that's what I think the work that we do is so fascinating. Like I've done a number of past life healings with people, and it is really powerful to go back and actually see how what sort of relationship you had with that person in the past, and actually learn the lessons that you were meant to learn from that and heal it so that it doesn't have to hold heavy in your heart right now.
Yes, yes, I absolutely agree. So for those watching, what Cheryl and I are talking about and believe in is a what we would call a version of reincarnation. So we don't call it that. We say that we live past lives. We go into the Akashic records to view those past lives. This is something we can do for anyone who's open to it. Um, a lot of people will hear that word reincarnation and automatically think of various Indian practices, Hinduism that believes in that if you have, it's very strongly tied to karma. That if you live a good life, then you get to elevate. If you live a bad life, then you end up regressing and could end up being a slug or an ant or something. This isn't. This isn't. Exactly what Cheryl and I believe. What we are more aware of is that the soul advances through lives as long as we meet our soul's contract and our purpose that we've negotiated prior to entering these lives. We get full choice of which lives we go into. And that, yes, maybe at an earlier time, very early on in our soul's evolution, that we maybe spent a life as a rock. Maybe we spent a life as wind, or that was certainly a life I've had in the past. Thank you, Latoya. Shout out to Latoya for seeing that past life. Um, uh, but um, what is very clear to us is that, like, the more we grow as a soul, the less likely it is that you're going to need to learn a lesson where you were more of an inanimate or non-sentient being. So at this point, for those of us that are in human bodies, you're probably going to stay in human bodies. For those souls that are in animals right now, they're probably going to stay in animals, or it may take many more millennia for them to make the jump into a more sentient body. This is all very metaphysical. I won't go too much deeper into it, but just so that you have some context, we are not saying that if you don't meet your person, now you're gonna answer something. So that being said, do you? I think then the next pertinent question is: do you feel like there is somebody that your soul has like negotiated with that wasn't that person before, but
Mm.
somebody out there? Or do you feel like it doesn't really matter? Like, I've definitely heard the thoughts of like soulmate, what is that? Like, what does it matter? Like, if I love myself, like, isn't that enough?
I agree with you. Like there is other people you can go back, most definitely. So like you said, we go to the Akashic records and you set the intention for whatever life you want to see. So a client may come and it might be, I want to see the life I had with that person, and also I want to see the life that I've had with somebody else, and actually see, and it can be confusing as well, because sometimes it's not actually, you mightn't actually be, if you're in a female body now, you mightn't be, that mightn't mean
Mhm.
that you're in a female body before. You could have a sibling relationship with that person, or you could be friends. It mightn't be exactly that sort of relationship. So you can definitely go back and ask for relationships where that did work out, that were very successful. So I think
Mhm.
that's really good to do too, because I think sometimes some of the past life healings that we do, they can be really heavy, and a lot of stuff comes up from it. But it's just as healing and just as powerful to do one to provide that hope, to actually know that you've done a good relationship before and you can do it again, and there's lessons to be learned from that life. But with you saying, as in, do you mean as in I should be happy now or everyone should be happy now to not meet anyone or not partner up
Mm,
with anyone.
mm,
I guess for me personally, and this is absolutely personal, I feel like I have so much love in my heart that why would I not want to share that with somebody? Whether I've met that
mm,
person in a past life before or not, whether it's a new connection now, that doesn't matter to me. But I just feel it's something I desire, and I don't feel it'd be in my heart if it wasn't a true desire. So I don't know. I know that there is people that are quite happy on their own, and that's not for me to judge if they are. But ultimately, it probably would beg the question: do they actually love themselves?
mm,
Because if they do love themselves, they would want to give that love back to others. That's just my personal opinion.
mm. That, I mean, for people who know me, they're gonna be like, Abigail, because for a long time now been like, you know what, I don't need anyone. I don't need another person. I have my relationship with Source, and I, love myself, and I continue to work, um and that feels really full. But you bring up a really good point though, of like, as a person who feels like I do have so much to give to the world, it's a valid question to ask. Have I really like gone and done, you know is there a lesson that I need to go back and revisit and like look and see, like, am I still clinging to, even subconsciously, these like feelings of like not enoughness and not worthy, um and I think that's fair. I think, just, off of the top of my head, like, it's definitely something that it's plagued me in the past, and certainly I'm sure will pop up again. For
The
anybody who knows me, does that mean I'm going on Tinder again? Probably not, but but I may go out to a bar.
Yeah, but I think the word you said is I don't need anybody. And I don't think that that's a bad position to be in, that you're self sufficient, you can give yourself the love. So that when you come, like, it brings that whole thing, oh, the other half, or, have you not met your other half and stuff like this? And it's like, for me looking at you, like, you're a very whole person. You don't need somebody. Like, but if you had somebody, you might enjoy that,
Yeah.
you know.
See, guys, she's great. I highly recommend setting up a reading with her. So I know that we're running short on time here, but is there anything else that you feel like people really do need to know or work on or understand? Like, is there a piece of information that people just tend to forget or don't know that you feel like is important?
Um, for me, the biggest thing that sometimes people listening to these conversations might feel like that, oh, other people are further along in their healing journey, or to not compare. And really, if you're feeling a bit bad of where you are on it, grant yourself the grace and forgive yourself. And that for me, particularly if anyone's listening after coming out of a relationship as well, forgiveness is massive. A lot of times we focus a lot of anger on the other person, or can be said the same if there's anything going on within a friendship or anything, but you have to turn it back and look at yourself, because if there's anything you're blaming yourself for, it's just very counterintuitive. So do the work on yourself to forgive yourself first, and then you'll be able to show up with compassion for other people.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is literally the perfect way to end. So for anybody who's interested in booking a session with this beautiful, beautiful soul, I will have all of her links down below. Follow her on Instagram, and all the other places that we follow people, and definitely grab a session. This has been an amazing conversation on love and life, and I'm so, so grateful. Thank you so much
I
for
am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be on. I really enjoyed the conversation, as I always do with you.
I love you. And everybody, we will see you next time for the next Breath of Life Conversations.